Welcome everyone to the very first session of the ESSEC Alumni Day. I am Virginie Sachs, alumna 2009, head of Compendium, and I will be your master of ceremony today. This is the very first time that ESSEC Alumni is organizing an event of such a scale. The association's ambition is to bring together the ESSEC communities, students, graduates, professors, staff from all over the world, from Singapore to New York via Paris, online and in person, to act for the common good. For this first edition, we will be together to act in favor of more diversity and inclusion in the workplace. You will experience an exceptional event with roundtables, networking, interactive workshops around the globe. It is not another additional networking event. It is the occasion to meet all alumni and ESSEC communities with clubs and chapters. The opportunity to celebrate the manifesto of the ESSEC Alumni Association that I will remind you in a minute. And finally, it is the occasion to understand, learn, and act concretely in favor of diversity and inclusion. Why have we chosen this theme? First, because it's a continuation of our natural pioneer leadership over the past decades. Also, because we believe that diversity is a goal as part of our humanism DNA. And finally, because diversity is a lever to win our social and environmental transition. We will not make the world of tomorrow relying only on those who made the world of yesterday. And it is the common responsibility of the school and the Alumni Association to give you all you need to succeed. Let me read you the key headlines of the association manifesto. We need to demonstrate freedom and responsibility if we are to take positive action in the world. Freedom means daring to think outside the box. It means pioneer spirit. It also means working together, driven by our values and talents, to invent new virtuous models for the planet and for society. We equip ourselves with the tools we need to deliver our mission. So just before we start, I would like to give you a couple of technical tips. So first, for optimal navigation, we advise you to use a computer rather than smartphones or tablets, and Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge. Live translation will be available for the 3 roundtables of today. Don't forget to ask questions to our speakers during the roundtable in the live chat that is at the right-hand side of your video. To keep a memory of the event, please take photographs through the QR code at the bottom of your screen in the gallery tag, which is at the top of your screen. For any question, you can reach out to the team at the email address at the bottom of your screen. And finally, the networking sessions and live translation of the roundtable are explained in tutorials available in the next to the tool. Now let's start. You will have 3 events to follow in a row: a roundtable, followed by a business networking and a collaborative workshop. The roundtable that comes next is entitled D&I Vectors of Business Performance in Asia and will be moderated by Vanessa Barros. Vanessa is an author, researcher, and expert on cultural intelligence and D&I issues. After a 20-year international career in advertising clients such as Procter, Danone, Peugeot, or Nina Ricci, Vanessa did her PhD in Singapore on intercultural conflicts and published a book, Don't Touch With My Professionalism. The speakers will give you their perspective around D&I and performance and specificities in Asia, Europe, and the US. The roundtable will last 40 minutes, after which you will be able to ask questions to our speakers in the live chat. I also encourage you to stay after the roundtable for the speed networking. I will now leave you with Reetika Gupta, Deputy Dean Asia Pacific, who will introduce the roundtable. video maestro, and see you in an hour.
Hi everyone, I'm Reetika Gupta, Deputy Dean of ESSEC Asia Pacific, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to ESSEC's first ever Alumni Day. Thank you all for coming, either connecting with us digitally or physically for this event. And over the next few hours, we'll be talking about diversity and inclusion, specifically ESSEC's culture of humanism, and reinforce to you how openness to differences is a key aspect of our school. I truly believe that diversity and inclusion are fundamental values that we all have at ESSEC as teachers, students, or alumni. And as we live in a world of change and uncertainty, inclusion and diversity are key to building a thriving economy and a united society. In Singapore, we experience diversity every day as we live in a multicultural country with a population consisting of many different nationalities living and working together closely. On our campus, no less than 48 nationalities come together to be part of the student population of ESSEC Asia Pacific. Because of this, we consider ourselves to be a hub, both in terms of culture and expertise. This is particularly true in the neighborhood of One North, Singapore's Silicon Valley, as we know it, where our campus is based. We are surrounded by investors, researchers, entrepreneurs, etc., from different cultural backgrounds working closely together. And our progress as a school has been fast-paced, as you know, and we invite you to be a part of this progress. In a few minutes, I will hand over the floor to a panel of ESSEC alumni who will share with you what they do in the domains of diversity and inclusion in Asia, specifically in the region. And to conclude, diversity and inclusion require small steps, but a continuous improvement. We have designed this day for you to think about practical, impactful ideas that you can start implementing right away.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Virginie, for the introduction. Thank you, Vice Dean, for this inspiring talk. Let me introduce you, please, our guests today for the panel. I am extremely excited to introduce you in alphabetical order. First, Vanessa Iloste. Vanessa was born in France and moved to Japan at the age of 19 years old. She had graduated from ESSEC in 2000 and was lucky to do the Irakata program and a one-year exchange program with Keio University. She has been now in the region for 26 years. She has lived in Osaka, Tokyo, Hong Kong, Shanghai, and Singapore. So although she doesn't look like it, she's one of the most Asian around us. She has been working for LVMH Group for over 21 years and is today the HR VP of Sephora Asia. She's married and has 2 children, which is one of her proudest accomplishments. And she has been writing as a hobby and is currently working on a story taking place in Hong Kong, which I can't wait to read. Welcome, Vanessa.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. Thank you for inviting me.
Second person will be Jonathan Lee. Born in France, graduated from ESSEC and Beijing University. Jonathan has worked in consultant strategy and investment banking across Europe, specializing on retail and digital transformation before coming to Hong Kong in 2017 to work for Capgemini, and then joining Richemont, where he currently is, as Chief of Staff to the Regional Chief Executive and Head of Diversity and Inclusion. Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, specializing in
Thank you very much for having me as well. I'm very honored to be here and also share about what we do in the company. Thank you.
Welcome, Jonathan. And finally, Yige Sun, who is an ESSEC 2014 and specialized in corporate finance. She held the ESSEC Excellence Scholarship and did a 2-year apprenticeship with Paris Schneider Electric in the human resources department, and she actually remained there. So in the past 7 years in the same company, she took over 4 different HR roles and local roles with solution expertise in talent management, compensation and benefit, global diversity, equity, and inclusion. Recently, she's the reward business partner for China supply chain. She is a big traveler, has traveled in more than 30 countries and connected with people from all kinds of background. And she recently just came back from a road trip in Tibet. Welcome you.
Hello, Vanessa. Hello, everyone. Great to connect with you.
So before we start our exciting talk, I would like to just share what the next generation has to tell us about this. This is a video that was done by the ESSEC students.
Dans le monde actuel, la diversité et l'inclusion ne peuvent demeurer des problématiques de seconde main.
Il est nécessaire d'accepter la diversité et d'en faire une véritable force pour les entreprises.
Nous refusons que nos collègues soient victimes de barrières morales ou physiques.
Nous aspirons à un monde de l'entreprise qui lève ses barrières et qui offre à chacun la possibilité d'un épanouissement professionnel.
Her türlü çeşitliliği entegre etmek için işe alırken veya günlük işlerde klişelerin kaldırılması savunuyoruz.
Nous voulons respecter toutes les formes de diversité, visibles, invisibles ou acquises, car elles façonnent chaque individualité et constituent notre société.
Nous aspirons à la mise en place de politiques d'inclusion concrètes et authentiques en entreprise.
Nous sommes convaincus que l'entreprise doit être un lieu d'écoute et de respect et doit être capable de s'adapter aux singularités.
Nous croyons fermement que les leaders doivent jouer un rôle central dans ces politiques.
Il est de leur responsabilité d'impulser le changement nécessaire pour un environnement professionnel plus inclusif. Ayons un impact, engageons-nous.
Ayons un impact, engageons-nous.
Ayons un impact, engageons-nous.
Welcome back. So there's definitely lots of debates lately on diversity and inclusion. I think the first thing to do would probably be to agree to a definition of those terms. And diversity, according to companies, is taken as mixity, gender equality. It is also integrating other circles with the gender orientation, sexual orientation, neurodiversity, disability. And so we want to make sure that we all realize that the spectrum is extremely wide. And basically diversity is all of us as individuals with all our differences. And inclusion is the ability to give room for everybody's potential to excel in the corporation. And cultural intelligence is going to be the soft skill that helps go from diversity to inclusion. So that being said, and I guess the metaphor that helps also crystallize it is, diversity is inviting a very, very different group of people around the table for dinner, and inclusion is actually making sure that everybody has a saying and everybody feels welcome and eats and talks and share the debates. Yeah. So the first thing that we would like to cover today is really about performance and how D&I drives corporate performance and how it links to corporate culture. So Jonathan, I know that prior to joining Richemont, you worked in also M&As and company valuation. And I thought it was very interesting that even pre-merger and acquisition, D&I was already one of the criteria to evaluate. So what is your take on the increase of value for the organization?
Well, thank you very much for this very interesting question. Indeed, for me, when I was in M&A and also in consulting or private equity, it was very interesting to actually see D&I metrics as well, taken into account in the sense that if a company is more diverse, if the board members of the executive committee is more diverse at all levels, their company would be valued a little bit more because, in fact, it would foster creativity, would foster innovation. And we have looked also at different studies on McKinsey reports indicating that the more diverse companies are, the more profitable they are. So when we would do company evaluation, beyond the financial KPIs, the usual revenue, costs, EBITDA metrics, there would also be people metrics. And these people metrics would also help us actually to assess the potential of a company and also assess how we can also improve a company or transform it by making it more diverse, by putting some policies or implementing some actions that could foster diversity, equity, and inclusion to then potentially in the medium and long term have fruits in terms of creativity, innovation, and profitability.
Very nice. And I understand, Vanessa, that at Sephora, D&I is really the spine of the strategy. So how is that worked on for you?
So a little bit like what Jonathan has just shared, we do have a dashboard that we review every month on which we analyze the number of nationalities we have in each office. For instance, you know, in Singapore, we have 36 nationalities. This is something we are very proud of. And we are also looking at the diversity from a gender perspective. And we're trying also in the next future to have KPIs around disability because we want also to promote this pillar in D&I. So we are actually very close to what Jonathan was doing in terms of due diligence when he was doing his M&A and to go beyond the dashboard, which I think is the first step. And this is great that companies are evaluating on this aspect. We are putting D&I at the heart of our strategy. So there is something I wanted to share with you, which has been launched a couple of weeks ago. And this is the China Beauty Pledge. So in my role, I'm taking care of the human resources for the whole Asia Pacific. We're talking about 7,000 employees. We have in total 11 markets. One of our biggest market is China. We opened China in 2004 and we have today 321 stores with more than 5,500 employees. We also have a very strong e-commerce business. One of the things we do at Sephora, the same way we do in every other place in the world, is that we are incubating brands. And when we are incubating brands, we are bringing new brands that nobody knows to the customers. We say in our jargon that we are looking for the brands in the kitchen. That means that we start the conversation with the founders when they are at the very beginning of their journey and when they are still sometimes cooking their products in their own kitchen. So one of the things we have done recently that I'm very proud of is that we have committed to support China beauty brands. We do have already a portfolio of China beauty brands in the 150 brands that we actually distribute in China. But we have committed to support in the next 3 years 5 brands from China that we are going to incubate. And our commitment is to bring these brands to, you know, all our network first, but also if they are successful to the rest of the group and the rest of Sephora worldwide. So this is very important to us. That means that we are going to work with the founders. We have a program in the US that is called Accelerate, in which we are taking founders through a boot camp to help them to learn about, you know, marketing and branding, and to go beyond usually what they think is the wealth of their products. So we help them with their business plan, with their brand DNA, all the articulation they need. And this Accelerate program is going to give them the tools to understand how to develop their brand, and we are going to support them to incubate these brands in China. So it makes me very proud. There are already a couple of brands that we have been supporting. We have been supported very successfully, but I believe with the identification of these 5 China brands, we are going to be even stronger, and we are going to continue at the heart of our strategy to demonstrate our values when it comes to D&I.
Wonderful. Wow, that's really impressive. And really, it is there to show from what Jonathan and you shared already that D&I works when it's across all the elements of the organization and with the impulse of the leaders. In Yige, in your experience at Schneider Electrics, I believe you also included in the KPIs, so the entire HR aspect as well.
Yes, indeed. Thanks, Vanessa. Hello, everyone. I come from Schneider Electric, and we specialize in digital transformation for energy management and also the automation for home and industry. So it's quite traditional, and we are facing transformation to more digital service-oriented industry. And we are a French multinational company which operates in more than 110 countries. We have 17,000 employees across the globe, and in China here, it's around 15,000. So with all of those employees coming from all kinds of different backgrounds, we are really committed to provide equal opportunities to everyone, everywhere, so that employees can feel uniquely valued and they are able to contribute their best. So DEI is definitely a part of our culture, our DNA, but more importantly, we see it as a business imperative because we believe a company operating in a more inclusive climate can have 4 times higher innovation. And then when it comes to the customer orientation, scores will be twice higher. And then it comes to the employee engagement will be 3 times more engaged than a company that has a less D&I climate. So what does that mean? We are really putting it to the business targets. And instead of just providing reports, dashboard for the leaders, only looking at the HR KPI, we are committed to put it to the business and finance results. So we, starting from 2015, every 3 years, we renew our sustainability impact commitment and to put at least 2 to 3 indicators that is relative to diversity. And that means this is a performance measurement. And every year at the end of the year, we publish the finance report, and this result will hugely affect the overall share price evolution, investor assessment, as well as the employees' annual incentive. So in the other word, if we don't achieve our diversity results target KPI, at the end of the year, employees' bonus will be deducted. So this is really committed, and we achieve it, and we together bound it with everyone's results. And one of the written KPI I can showcase is by 2025, we are committed to achieve 50, 40, and 30. That means women should represent 50% of overall new hires. And at the frontline manager level, to prepare a better pipeline, we are committed to achieve 40% of frontline manager that is female, and another 30% for senior leadership in our organization. So other than this gender KPI, we also have generation, nationality KPI. And for this one, as we are a industry that is historically dominated by male, and you cannot imagine like 10 years before we only have 1 executive leader that is female sitting in the board. And now, as of today, globally, we have more than 35. In China, we have 40% of female that is executive leader for country level. So this is really dare to choose our, challenge ourselves and unleash our targets with everyone's effort.
Wow.
Very interesting.
Very, very impressive as well. Sorry, Jonathan?
No, it's very interesting, and I wanted to rebound on it. But maybe for the luxury industry, it's very different in the sense that for us, we already reached more than 50% on almost all our executive committees with female leaders. So we already reached this target. We have other targets more in terms of localization and balance, also with international talents in order to ensure that it's really mixed. And then diversity here, to rebound also on what Vanessa and Yige said, is also similar, is that we also have indeed seen a lot of very good results in terms of customer experience and in terms of employee journey. Because through, for instance, I'm going to share about the D&I training that we often do, where we try to showcase some scenarios in the boutique and where we simulate basically a potential discrimination case study. And then we have seen that through the trainings, the net customer experience score really improved. So in a sense, basically, training all our staff on awareness, on removing unconscious biases, has actually not only improved the customer experience, but the overall then feel of the boutique for the luxury industry.
Yeah, and as a researcher myself, I love to explore around the world how these things are done, and I was really impressed how in the United States I went to Sephora's and I had the first transgenders salespeople, and I thought it was so great to be able to interact and to have them. Then in Europe, I saw that happening as well. In luxury, I remember this incident that was just really funny about collectivism, where, you know, that claim of, oh, you're going to love this watch, everybody likes it. And I was like, you can't say that to me. I'm a Westerner. and it was just somebody who had been trained, and we were having this discussion because the claims, the marketing claims, the sales claims are going to be all different. So diversity and inclusion and understanding of those differences enables us to perform way better. So exactly to your point, Jonathan. Now, talking about practicalities, what is the everyday kind of effort in the corporate world, and what's the reality sorry, I wanted to ask the question to Vanessa on Sephora, and then we'll come to you, Jonathan.
I think that when it comes to the culture, Vanessa, the thing that I really like with Sephora, that is the fact that you actually feel this concept of D&I the moment you push the door, the moment you enter Sephora. You experienced it yourself when you were in the US or in Europe. I had the privilege to work for Sephora twice in my career. I was the acting HR manager for Sephora when they opened in Shanghai in 2004. And I came back as the HR VP for Asia in 2017. And it was very interesting to see that after a couple of hours being back to Sephora, I felt the same feeling of being welcome and being energized. I think at the heart of the Sephora DNA, there is this energy, and this energy is very warm, is very welcoming, and is encouraging you to be really yourself. So when we launched our EVP, our employee value proposition 3 years ago, and we looked at our pillars, it was very obvious to me that one of them would be around the fact that we are actually so authentic in the way we interact with each other. And this pillar that I love the most, it's called bold authentic. So we are boldly authentic. And what it means that people come with their full self. So they come, yesterday was very interesting. I mean, this is a very surprising example, but there was a big noise at one point in the afternoon, and I could hear people very excited. And what I found out is one of my colleagues from another floor had brought a cat to the office. And I thought, wow, that's exciting. But she is a cat lover and she is passionate about her cats. And I could identify in my floor all the people who are fascinated about cats. So it was very surprising to me, and I don't want to reduce D&I to this idea, but it's a very concrete way for me to express our openness, and to the fact that someone like her, who has been in the organization for just a couple of months, is feeling very excited to come and share that with us. And nobody actually wasted any productivity or anything. We just wanted to know more about her. We got to know her a little bit better, and we got together for a couple of minutes, and it brought a lot of joy to the office. So I think that this idea of welcoming people and welcoming them and respecting them and encouraging them to bring their own self, it was already when I started joining Sephora in 2004, and today I can still feel it, and this is something that makes me very proud.
Very nice. You mentioned a few things. You talked about warmth and feeling comfortable. Some talk about that psychological safety, which is really at the core of diversity and inclusion. And you also said something very important, is like I can be myself. And one of the things that happens when there's lack of psychological safety is that people hide who they are. And that brings what we call an emotional tax. And cognitively, because there's so much we can take in our brains, it affects us. It creates a sort of handicap in the first place, not being able to talk about our family status, not being able, or not feeling like we can talk about our family status, our neurodiversity, etc. So very, very important. The last point I think that is important stressing in what you said is the notion of authenticity. Mm-hmm. And when brands get caught doing DNI washing, it really, really bites them back. And it's very important. That's why the role of the leadership, and that's a topic that is very, very high up here, of people who walk the talk, is so important. So how does that all work at Richemont, Jonathan?
Well, I was about to say that, we have similar initiatives, and in terms of bringing the leadership on the table, we were one of the first luxury groups actually to sign, for instance, the pledge to marriage equality in Hong Kong. And also we were the first to sign the Charter of Equal Opportunities Commission against racial discrimination, in Hong Kong as well. So basically, in terms of concrete actions, what we have done in the past that was really efficient was really to do communication campaigns internally and bringing experts from outside. Because when I started as head of diversity, there was already a lot of initiatives, but we wanted to streamline everything across our 26 maisons across Asia Pacific. So we invited our leaders, our managing directors from different maisons to come and talk with different speakers from other industries to really bring the talk and bring also knowledge from outside. Then, in terms of training, we have put in place for all the newly onboarded employees in several markets, a DNI training. So as soon as an employee joins, in the first 2 months, they must join a DNI workshop. So it's a 60 minutes to 90 minutes workshop where we discuss about biases, about psychological safety, about coming as you are to the workplace, to the boutique or wherever you work. And then we put together people from the office, from the boutique, from the distribution center all together, because it's people that never really interact, might interact in virtual meetings or in some meetings, but it's good that at the beginning, at least of the journey in the company, they work or they meet together. So that's one of the few concrete actions that we started. And then one of the last ones, well, we have a lot of dashboards as well, where we measure nationalities, gender, and where we try to assess the gaps that we may see. Because if we look at the almost 9,000, almost 10,000 employees that we have across Asia Pacific, everything might look flat on average. But then when we look at specific entities, specific markets, specific brands, it really helps us to see and benchmark where we can really improve on some specific topics. So that was one of the main improvements that we've seen in the last 2 years. And then finally, we've also volunteered a lot with lots of NGOs and charities in the market to really give back to society. And with Chloe, one of our fashion maisons, who was and who is actually the first B Corp approved luxury maison, we really try to give back to society here in all our markets and to work with charities to develop some products that we can give back to society, like the shelter suit, which is a suit for homeless people, and also work on some initiatives on sustainability as well.
Wow. One of the things that strikes me, you're talking about 26 maisons, right? When you think about it, it's 26 different cultures. And by promoting the diversity and by promoting the understanding of how norms and behaviors might be different, you're also promoting a much better work environment for the entire group, right? Same thing on the LVMH, and also when there's all those national and country differences. It's a business case.
No, and we're very lucky. We're all in the same building, almost like in 3 different districts, at least in Hong Kong, in China as well, in Korea. So there is a lot also of offline interactions since we're all in the same space and it's open, it's all hot desking. I can work from like the Cartier office. I can work from the Van Cleef & Arpels office if I want to. So it's very open in a way, and that really made a change that happened more during the pandemic actually. So the pandemic in a way also helped us to accelerate all these hot desking initiatives, and therefore afterwards working with different colleagues in different seats every day.
Yeah. The pandemic had this impact also because of homework, of blurring the boundaries between work and family. And that also has, and maybe it pushed the phenomenon of trying to understand and give psychological safety. IBM had an incredible pledge right from the start on how to respect people, whether they would have to put cameras or not, etc. Because again, it was just trying to make sure that everybody would feel comfortable in a very difficult environment already. Another thing that you mentioned, Jonathan, that I find is extremely important is that the responsibility of the company goes beyond their own self. And the fact that we work in the ecosystem and what you were referring to with working with charities, etc., is very important also because it opens our networks to promote job offers to circles that wouldn't have seen them otherwise, right? So that's also one of the elements of diversity. And when we think about our LinkedIn profiles, we often have people like us. It's like, I'm in luxury, I have luxury people, marketing people, finance people, whatever. And so I would encourage everybody to look at their LinkedIn and say, am I diverse enough, or how could I connect with people who have a different point of view? Because otherwise we see the world through our social filters. Yige, what would you have to say on some of the initiatives? Because I know there's plenty at Schneider as well.
Yeah, I think what Vanessa and Jonathan mentioned has all best practices, and I strongly would echo to what you mentioned, like we need to walk the talk, not just talk the talk, because diversity topics are sometimes superficial. So I'll share 2 interesting examples, starting from what we encourage for the multi-generation and the nationality diversity, because we have set up a multi-hub strategy to have 3 different headquarters for a French multinational company, and we are located in Paris, Boston, and Hong Kong. So today, Hong Kong has more than 30% of our executive leaders, including our global CEO and HR leader, and where the decisions can be made more closely, that's one point. And on the other side, more importantly, people don't need to travel and change their region and change their home country with their home family members to develop their career. So especially for younger generation, they can decide to stay in Asia and do a global role. And that's what I've experienced in 2017 after moving back from Paris and still taking a global role, and can have a global overview, understand the local market needs, and on the other side, you can have more exposure and have more quick decision making. And another important example, as I'm doing my reward business partner role, so I'll touch base on something about compensation, which is more sensitive, because we are one of the leading companies that have a very holistic fair pay approach, and we call it gender pay equity, because we systematically have defined a calculation methodology to calculate each individual employee's gender pay gap. And we will take reactive and proactive actions to close those gaps if it's being justified. So during the salary review, we have a very dedicated budget every year for this pay gap closing investment. And on the other side, we have supported those decision-making managers and leaders to do education together with the transparency of data reporting. And we have deducted face-to-face trainings to the executive and managers before 2018 for hidden bias. And then right from last year, for all employees, put it as the annual essential learning for around 40 minutes online, interactive and e-learning to make sure every employees understand our fair pay principle and showing the respect for all of the employees from all kinds of different backgrounds. And in the past 5 years, we have launched those series of training and covered a lot of people managers, and the feedback has been very positive, especially in the Asian market, because sometimes people don't want to open the door and talk about it, and everyone thinks we had already achieved equality because it seems like we are embracing everyone. But from the data and from the fact that we showcase and testimonials from employees, they realize there are still some hidden bias and all kinds of different bias from different reasons. For example, stereotyping or bias towards the baseline. For instance, we don't want to have a very hard negotiation for the offer. So in the end, we just refer to their historical offer package and ask what you received in the past in the previous company, and then just give a premium increase to them, which is not fair at all. And another example is bias towards affinity. For example, you want to only hire employees with the similar background of you, like coming from the same school, same specialization, same region, etc. So this is another unconscious bias. So with those training and with top-down budget decision, managers start to take more proactive actions, and they are more persuaded to follow our direction. And for the next cases, they start to think more proactively. So that's how our cases have starting to make impact, but there's a long way to go to continue this journey.
That's really inspiring. There's two things in this. One is about the globalization and the role that Asia is taking today, which will lead us to our next topic of how to create a path for D&I in Asia. Just before that, the fact that at the recruitment stage, there is that understanding that we all have our preferences and that sometimes they're not in the best interest of the company is very, very important. And also, at Leadership CQ, we help also companies when it comes to, the how you write the job offers. Because if you start talking of English native, many people will exclude themselves thinking I wasn't born English and therefore I'm not joining, whereas we might be fluent in English, right? And not be, so digital native is another one where a lot of people exclude themselves if they weren't born with the internet. Hello. and so it's really promoting that inclusive environment. And then one of the things that I remember Coca-Cola many years ago used to say, that was the head of HR, used to say, I want the people who we let go of Coca-Cola to continue to drink Coca-Cola. And I think that shows the degree of respect that was necessary to maintain with employees, even when they had to leave. And one of the things that we sometimes forget is that an interview in recruitment is a first front window for our company. And in today's world, with a lot of social media going on, if you give an inspiring interview where you already share some of the D&I values and efforts that are being done with the company, people can embrace it further because the next generation wants it. We've seen that, right? So talking about the path and one, you just mentioned, Yige, the fact that the global headquarters were no longer in the traditional Western world, right? And that I think is a massive shift. And that shows that people are fighting against a sort of ethnocentrism, to think that our culture is the only culture, which was very much of the Western world at a time. And so, Vanessa, I know you're very, very passionate about this topic. And what is the take for you in terms of how the D&I also manifests across continents, and how can we avoid copy pasting everything, and thinking that we know better?
So this is a question we discussed together as a team when we did our preparation for this roundtable. I have the conviction, even if I've not done the research you have done, Vanessa, that there is a path for D&I in Asia. and that path is maybe going to be slightly different to the path that is today happening in North America or in Europe. I think that we have all, all of us, we have used, the American best practices as the foundation for our action when we started the D&I journey a couple of years ago. But I personally have experienced the fact that I think that the initiatives, even if in principle are very, very strong, in terms of the way they are shaped, might be seen by our colleagues as very loud, very aggressive, and sometimes a little bit too much in your face. So I give you an example that I think is going to illustrate my purpose. We have launched very recently, 2 years ago, an allyship guide for LGBTQ+ in Southeast Asia. And this is something that I'm very, very proud of. This is something we have written ourselves because we felt like the ones we had seen from, other parts of Asia, other parts of the world might not be actually adapted or might not be resonating with, our colleagues. So when we wrote it together with people who are based in the region and people who are, really feeling very strongly when it comes to allyship for LGBTQ+. And I think that LGBTQ+ is a pillar that in Asia is maybe not at the same level of maturity that we have compared to other places. So we need to respect, all the different, I would say, sensibilities around the topic. And we need to make sure that people are going with us in the journey. So it was a big hard work, to write this allyship guide together as a team, and I think that it was many hours of thinking and reflection around the best way to actually communicate about the topic. But ultimately, when I look at the results and I look at this guide, I can see that what is written in there is something that can be used across all our markets and is much more powerful than if we had copied and pasted a guide that was already available coming from the US, for instance. So I think that there is this need for all of us, the practitioner. I mean, Yige and Jonathan are very good examples of practitioner of D&I in their own respective companies, that we actually adapt the materials that are shared with us, and that we also, represent the voice of Asia. My belief is the voice of Asia is maybe a little bit more harmonious, a little bit more, respectful of each other, and maybe less in the face, or maybe less assertive or aggressive than other voices. And I think that, I know that Jonathan is studying in Beijing, so he knows that better than me. But when I studied, in Japan, some of the Japanese philosophy, and later on Chinese philosophy, and the very, very beginning of humanity when it comes to, thinkers and people who were, reflecting on humanity, the values expressed in the Chinese culture, for instance, are very, very close to the values we have today in D&I. Respecting others, trying to be the best version of ourselves, listening to others. I think that if we read, the philosophers of the beginning of the Chinese culture, we'll find some of the very, very same values that we have today. But I believe that once we use the words of the civilization, when we actually approach people with their own heritage, and we tell them, look, we had that many years ago in the Chinese culture, it will be much more powerful than just, using a copy and paste from something we have heard on a podcast from New York or a podcast from San Francisco, because it will touch their heart. It will make them reflect more. It will resonate with them more. So I don't have, unfortunately, the luxury of writing the piece of research, but I'm very excited about all the people who might be listening to us today, who might be actually starting, this work of writing about the past for D&I in Asia.
Yeah,
and Vanessa.
Yeah, sorry, Yige?
Sorry to interrupt. I'm just too curious to see, is it in the beauty industry we have more extroverted employees, or how do we manage those employees who are more conservative and quiet? And I know your industry is much better to accept this communication and promotion for
this is a very good question, Yige. We had this conversation together on WeChat, actually, around the fact that our industry, the beauty industry, is actually very loud and is sometimes less welcoming, to introverted, personalities. And I can imagine, even if I've never worked for Schneider, that maybe Schneider is maybe more welcoming to introverted, profiles. So I think that there is a need for all of us, to really listen to each other. When I see, Yige, what you are doing, which is incredible, because I know you are a very strong total rewards expert when it comes to pay equality, which I'm pretty sure is extraordinary, is a breakthrough, and this is something we can all learn from. Or when I listen to Jonathan and what he's doing also when he's inviting, these people to speak, to influence, his colleagues. I think that it's very, very critical that we actually, for the D&I in Asia, listen to each other and understand from each other practitioner in Asia what is going to be, the most resonating approach for employees. And if Jonathan is sharing with me, an initiative from Richemont, or Yige is sharing with me another one from Schneider, and I feel that is more relevant to Asia, I will be much more motivated to, proudly steal their ideas rather than copy and pasting maybe something that is, just something from North America.
And we're going to have to find the right balance between when you say North America, it all came from, there's this studies around the 3 big cultures in the world: honor, dignity, and face. And dignity being those countries that are very individualistic, where it's me, myself, and I that matter more than anything. But when we are in Asia with the interdependency and the fact that we all rely on each other, we need that harmony. We need that respect, because we are in it together. It's a we versus I. And so immediately, as you said, the language has to change. And it's no longer about, I am defending my rights, or I am aggressively fighting another group. It's more about, how can we go together? And maybe we have lessons to teach back in how we can achieve those things, because maybe they can be a bit less confrontational. And I think you were mentioning, Jonathan, how education was pivotal, yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, that's I'm leaving you the...
Oh, okay, good. No, yes, indeed, education is very important, and listening actively to what our employees have to say is very important. So every year we conduct our annual people experience survey, where we ask our employees several questions on different topics. And there is also a D&I section where we ask about their experience as employees in the group. And what I find fascinating is actually to also see the points of focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, in the sense that for Asia Pacific, according to each different market, they all have their own priorities, which are indeed very different from the priorities in Americas, where it might be more focused on ethnicities, whereas for us, we have some markets where they really want to focus on disabilities for a year, and then the next year, they want to focus more on LGBT or neurodiversity. So we have a lot of top three priorities on diversity that we assess every year, and that change every year according to the priorities of the market, of the latest trends, the latest geopolitical trends as well. So yeah, it's very fascinating to follow, and by doing surveys, we learn a lot.
And to wrap it up, what would be that need for harmony, Yige, that you are so passionate about as well?
Yeah, actually, it's hard. I really want to share one of my personal experience because I worked in Paris for 2 years and now in Beijing for 5 years. And when I was working in Paris, we always receive some email and ask us to go for strike to protect our kind of human rights and protect some unfair actions. And one time, after launching the canteen of the office, I received a leaflet written like, do you know it's incredible that our CEO earns blah blah times of the salary versus the normal salary of the employee, and we should strike for it. And also I joined a lot of different LGBT plus parades in Paris, but this does not happen in Beijing at all, that's for sure. So there is a different level of cultural context and social favorite actions and approaches. But from my side, I would say it needs to go hand in hand. It doesn't mean we cannot say it, we cannot promote it. It's just in favor of different approach to let the people listen to you by providing more testimonials, showcase to their close stories, and this really happens in front of you and you have already experienced it, you just haven't realized it. But on the other hand, I would say Asian people, at least Chinese people, are more result oriented. We need to take it more seriously and put it as the business objective and put it to the performance and put it to the table so that people will really start to take actions. And more importantly is to cut the actions into different steps. It's not something that we can realize just in 1 year because DEI is something very historical and very environment driven. So you need to cut all of the actions and objectives, KPIs into different steps, and with the dashboard and the data supporting the leaders and the employees to see it and show the evidence we are progressing. And on the other side is driven good performance results to the whole ecosystem, including our partners and customers, so that we see the value and we drive to the right direction. So that's I think the just hand-in-hand approach together.
So what you just said about the time, I think is very, very important, and that's a lovely way to wrap it up, because one of the things that we also need to all accept is that individually we come from very, very different backgrounds where diversity might have existed or not. And because our brains are programmed to only replay what has happened to us before, we come, and it's like a journey where we take the train at different stations, and we need to respect each other. And rather than pointing fingers, we need to have a deliberate effort to include, because otherwise accidentally we will exclude. And so one of the things that right now, there's a lot of controversy around the topic, there's a lot of fights, and it's more about, okay, can we have the courtesy, the candidness, the curiosity, the courage to work together on this topic, learn together and help each other. And yes, some of us will make mistakes, some of us will have the wrong word, etc. But if the intent is there and a lot of people have goodwill, then it's just, it's a great journey for all of us to embrace. So very, very nice. We are, thank you so much, Jonathan, Vanessa, and Yige. We're not done yet. Now we have to give the floor to our audience, who already have very interesting questions. So please shoot all your questions ahead, and I will ask the participants who wants to take on the respective questions. So the first one has to do with female, and how would be the best way to get women into the C-level positions. Who would like to tackle that one?
I'm happy to take this one. I think for me, I mean, when it comes to we call it in our jargon, the C-suite, exposing ladies to the C-suite. I think that exposing female to the C-suite, I think that what is really important is to provide exposure, because the truth of the matter is, like, the moment you get the exposure, I think it's possible for you to be at the table like anyone else. So what I try to do in my team, for instance, is that I always make a point to start the meeting with, for instance, the business updates or the business, strategic updates, so that everyone from an HR perspective is going to talk business before they talk anything else. And I think that, you know, when it comes to the skills that we need to build, we need to really build this idea that the moment you are going to be able to talk business exactly like anyone else, then you are going to have the seat at the table. I was very lucky when I was at DFS. I was working with, still at LVMH. DFS is part of LVMH. And I was surrounded by leaders who really made a point to take me on their market visit. I remember one of the managing director, you know, he was always taking me on his market visit. And I was going with him, going together with him, visiting all the stores, the 1,100 employees we had, you know, at the Hong Kong International Airport. And he was encouraging me to talk about, you know, the business results, the KPIs. He was encouraging me to ask questions on the floor to the store manager about their own KPIs. And he really showed me the way about how to be, you know, the HR business leader who is respected because she is talking about business before she talks about anything else. So I think that this part, which I personally have experienced and I've really enjoyed, is most probably one of the many, many things we need to do in order for females and for everyone to have a seat at the table.
Yeah, when I look at the experience of the clients that we collaborate with, there's the notion of increasing the pool, making sure that the pool is rich with the right people, regardless of gender. There's the notion of educating everyone to be able to have the competence. And so even at ESSEC, we deliver an executive program on how to prepare female for the executive board discussions. And then the last thing would be not to give women tasks that are more difficult. And as CEOs, research has shown that sometimes we give women tasks that are more related to relationship and conflict issues, because there's this stereotype that women are better at relationships. And that is a very, very difficult journey when it's given to a CEO. And sometimes they might fail just because the task is very, very difficult. Nobody would have succeeded, you know? So, in terms of mentoring, I know that there's lots of programs like that, and you need to give it time. You know, the Ministry of Defense wants to have an equal number of generals talk about something complicated to achieve. And so they're trying to make sure that also the life balance, family, etc., is taken into account to make sure that there's women willing to go for a long time on a submarine or things that traditionally we're not sort of thought of. How can we get faster to D&I? Someone is eager to get it going. So who wants to be the one answering this one?
Maybe I can take this one. On our side, in Richemont, when we really wanted to accelerate, we started with the surveys in each of the markets, and we've done somehow virtual market visits during the pandemic to understand the priorities of the exco of each of our markets, and involving all the different brands that we have. And then also having a generic survey and having lots of volunteers to join together in a community. So we had a big D&I community across Asia Pacific where we put all the topics on the table, and then we just did a little list of priorities, and that you really helped us to understand the key topics that had to be sorted out immediately. And then in the second time, we've put in place dashboards. So it took more or less a month to assess which were the right metrics, and then based on these metrics. That really helped us to identify the gaps. So the basic ones that you can identify, the basic ones in which normally your company HR IT system should give you access, is basically gender data, nationalities data, and then maybe information and visibilities. These are the basic. For LGBT, I'm not sure it's measured. I'm not even sure it's legal to measure it. But at least for the three items, normally you have the information, the elements of the information, and you can extract everything in automated dashboards. So that's very easy to put in place. And then finally, just reach out to the ecosystem, reach out to other D&I practitioners, as Vanessa and Yige said, and try to get experts to come in and just speak at a round table or just on a specific topic. Here in Hong Kong, I invited the Hong Kong U professor of gender studies, who is also a transgender, to speak about transgender 2 years ago. I invited 2 NGOs specialized on invisible disabilities to speak about this topic. And we did also a visual campaign where we put in all our offices in the corridors some posters of people with invisible disabilities, and with success stories also to highlight the positivity in all the different stories that we were displaying. That's like a few things that you can kickstart. Very easy to do, very low cost as well. So yeah, hope this helps.
Yeah, I personally, go ahead, Yige, go ahead. You wanted to share something here?
And there's another question.
Yeah, very important question. So I want to add 2 more points here. One is ask your country president and all leadership team to be role model and ambassador for that, because if your country president is committed to do something, everyone can be supported and for all of the process, for the sponsorship, etc. And the other side is from bottom up, because we can build up more local network for specific needs, and only themselves knows for this community or circle what they need. So just self-organized and supported by the HR and leaders, and that can run more smoothly. So that's just 2 more tips.
Which brings me to the fact that when we welcome diversity, we have the responsibility to make sure it works. And so as leaders, it's all very well to say, I want gender equality, I want to welcome an invisible diversity. But when somebody has a neurodiversity, there might be technology that you need to put at their disposal. And so we have that responsibility to work on it as well. Yige, since you were talking, there's a question here of somebody wanting to know a little bit in the real world how the journey can be tough sometimes, and what do we do when there's barriers, either skeptic leaders or difficulties that we need to overcome, like you were talking about employees wanting to strike against the CEO's pay. What is your experience there? Do you have like 1 or 2 anecdotes of things that you had to do to overcome barriers?
Actually, yeah, I have to say there's no perfect solution. That needs to be embedded in the very beginning. So at least from the commitment and philosophy perspective, you are committed to give fairness and ensure you do the audit and you follow up with everything that is not equal. And after you have been reported or receive any other feedback from the employees, whether it's negative or positive, you just treat it more fairly and more seriously and give more quick reactions to different situations, so that you may not be able to resolve it in one time, or this has a lot of different evidence or backgrounds, 1, 2, 3, 4. But after explanation and communication, and next time you can set up a higher target, and people will see you have put a lot of effort to that, and your commitment and objective have always remains the same, and you're always running towards that one. That is enough so far. But I know there's different situations that's different time, especially in the COVID period, because situations are very complex. So you need to tackle them one by one. Yeah.
Very nice. And one of the things that we ought to never forget is that, again, as leaders, our responsibility is also to take positions. And one of the most difficult thing is change and enabling people to change. And so when we see behaviors that are not so kind or not so respectful, when we see a canteen that is completely ignoring a part of the world because there's no food for them, it's about us taking action and bringing ideas and saying, this could have been said in a nicer way, or, this idea came from this woman. She'd already said it before. Why wasn't it recognized before? Kind of thing. It's like we all have means to promote and be bystanders and react, because a lot of people suffer in silence, and it's our responsibility to bring that comfort zone to them.
And actually, every year from our employee engagement survey, because we have open-ended questions for employees to provide more feedback, the area for improvement and the delightful moments that you observe, they recognize everything we did. So all of the small clicky moments and everything we promoted and every activities that they joined, they remember that. So that's very great.
Very, very nice. It's like the claim of every little helps by Tesco. And so what we've covered, D&I at the core of business performance with proven results in there. We've talked about practices in everyday, throughout the 360 of HR, ecosystems, our brands, our headquarters. And then we talked also about having the cultural intelligence to realize the D&I is not the same across countries, across regions, and therefore the need for us to adapt and be proactive in doing so. Thank you so much, all of you, for your participation and the great insights. I'm going to leave it to Virginie to close the session. Virginie, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much to all of you for this very interesting roundtable. What is really striking to me is, alongside the best practices that you've shared, the depth that your own experience is really bringing to your practice, which is very convincing as you put a lot of yourselves. Thank you very much for this.